All right, Badgers, I just want to keep continuing with my holiday survival guide gift podcast to you. And we need to have a serious conversation about stress because not only is it the holiday season, but we are in the middle of a very high stress season, right? Not the Instagram worthy kind where, you're grimacing in an ice bath for the perfect thumbnail to post, right? I'm talking about the kind where Aunt Linda's on her fourth martini explaining, why your life choices are wrong while simultaneously asking you for money. Both make you want to scream, both make you question your sanity, but only one is actually making you stronger at the cellular level. So let's break this down into a mitochondrial madness, if you will. I am really on this mitochondrial kick lately and researching and studying and trying to find out all the things I can about these fabulous little powerhouses inside of our body. Not to mention the fact that I may or may not just freaking love the fact that the energy inside the cells of mitochondria are called a Krista, which is who I am. Yes, I am your host for the Gritty Glitter Badger podcast, and I am the energy inside your mitochondria. So let's break this down. And, with more science than your family WhatsApp group has on conspiracy theories and all the things. So let's cruise on in to the topic of the day: drunk relatives and cold plunges. A stress comparison. Your mitochondrial have opinions. So let's start first with a tale of two stressors. And this is the cellular, which is a really hard word for me to say. Cellular smackdown begins, right? So Dr. Rhonda Patrick's research on hormetic stress gives us the framework. And hormesis is when a little bit of a bad thing creates a good adaptation. And I talk about this a lot with my fitness, in my membership, my fitness app, my training, why I have certain metabolic conditioning pieces the way that I do, right? It's why exercise works. You literally damage your muscles so they grow back stronger, right? But here's the key. The stress has to be acute. No, I don't mean like photo worthy, selfie worthy. Oh, you're so adorable. I mean short, controllable, and followed by recovery. Let's score our competitors. So a cold plunge, the acute check with that is 3 to 5 minutes max. It's controllable, right? It's a check that you can get out at any time. Recovery is guaranteed. And the check would be with this one is you warm up after. Now let's talk about the drunk relatives. So the acute, that is a hell no. That is like a minimum 3 hours that feels like 40 fucking 7, right? But it is controllable? No, not unless you fake a medical emergency or you use the old Irish exit and you just skedaddle the fuck out of there, right? Recovery guaranteed? Absolutely not. There is no recovery. They're going to text you about whatever happened or, whoa, where were you? We missed you for like weeks after. And already your mitochondria are picking sides. So let's talk about a mitochondrial report card. And this is who's making the powerhouse happy. So your mitochondria are these beautiful little powerhouses, right? They're like the coaches of your cells. It's the little Krista love inside each one. A Krista, it's spelled with a C, but it doesn't matter. Multiple is a Krista. It's still a Krista. They love a good challenge because that makes them adapt, but they need specific conditions in order to thrive. And when you hit that ice water, here's what your mitochondria actually begin to experience. So Dr. Wouter van Marken Lichtenbelt's research shows that cold exposure triggers brown adipose tissue, brown fat, right? Which is packed. I mean, packed like sardines in a can with mitochondria. And these bad boys or bad girls, because the Krista's inside the mitochondria, literally generate heat by burning energy. It's like turning on thousands of tiny furnaces. And Dr. Patrick's studies found cold exposure increases PGC1A. Try saying that if you've been drinking. That could be a game. This is the master regulator that tells your body, make more mitochondria. It's cellular multiplication in the best way. And research from the Karolinska Institute, it actually shows that regular cold exposure makes existing mitochondria work better. And they become more efficient at producing ATP, which is your cellular energy, right? And it's also with less oxidative stress. So it's like updating from a gas guzzling truck, maybe to something smaller. But honestly, I like the gas guzzling. I have a gas guzzling truck, and well, we can make that work. Anyway, plus cold triggers a 200 to 300% increase in norepinephrine, which not only makes you feel badass, but it directly improves mitochondrial function and neuroplasticity. I'm also diving into lately is really researching and actually actively working out in the cold weather as much as possible because of the benefits of the mitochondria and the brown adipose tissue, and also with building muscle. So I'm going to have more on that coming up in 2026. I'm going to do an episode as I'm researching that. But here's where it gets ugly with, drunk relatives or drunk friends, or just even if it's, the business, the company party, or whatever it is. Dr. Robert Sapolsky's primate studies show that social stress creates sustained cortisol elevation. And I have talked about this in my past few podcasts. Unlike the quick spike from cold, which mitochondria can handle, this is like leaving your phone flashlight on, and eventually there's battery death. So psychological stress generates reactive oxygen species, ROS, faster than the mitochondria can handle them. And Dr. Martin Picard's research literally shows that stress mitochondria leak electrons. Your powerhouses, they're having a meltdown. It's like TMI, okay, that directly damage the mitochondrial DNA. And unlike nuclear DNA, mitochondrial DNA has really, really shit for repair mechanisms, if you will. This damage, it just continues to accumulate and compound. And when we have chronic social stress, this makes mitochondria switch from efficient energy production. They're basically now going into survival mode. They basically go from being productive workers to doomsday preppers. And like literally, they are the ones that are going out and buying all the toilet paper from the shelves. So the temperature of dysfunction, and this is a direct comparison. So I would like to get specific about what 3 minutes and 39 degrees Fahrenheit does versus 3 hours at your typical normal body temperature, 98.6, with elevated blood alcohol in your vicinity. So your cold plunge, the cascade goes like this. So minute 1 is like, you're literally like, fuck, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Like, and you're just trying everything you can to not focus on what you're overly focused on. Your sympathetic activation, it kicks in. And then minute 2, your breathing starts to slowly stabilize. And this is where adaptation begins. And then by minute 3, that strange calm from parasympathetic rebound, it's a post plunge where you get euphoria from the endorphins that are being released. 2 hours later, you've got increased energy from mitochondrial efficiency. And then the next day, you've got better stress resilience from that hormetic adaptation. Now, let's talk about your drunk uncle, and let's talk about this cascade and what happens. So minute 1, and it could be anybody. I'm just using drunk uncle as an example. Minute 1 brings tension in your shoulders as cortisol begins. So, you just get tight, right? So, or hour 1. So hour 2, or I can't even read my own handwriting. Come on, people. Okay, minute one is the shoulder tension. It could be the tension in your chest. It could be, you know, where your shoulders are up to your ears. It could be your jaw is tight. You can feel, there have been moments where I can feel like my skin on my scalp literally freaking tighten. Okay, it could be that. Hour one, you're fake laughing. It hurts from, you know, your face from the stress accumulation. Like we can only do that for so long. Hour two, there starts to be these intense escape fantasies. And this is when your oxidative stress peaks. Like you're thinking of, okay, how am I going to do the Irish exit? How can I get to the bathroom? Do I need to go visit the family dog? Can I tend? Can I be friend? Like all of these things are happening. And by hour three, it delivers emotional numbness from system overload. This starts to look like disassociation. So post gathering, you're dealing with exhaustion from mitochondrial depletion. Have you ever, we all have, I just, like you've been at a gathering and you literally, you feel like you ran a 100-mile marathon backwards through a long hedge in bare feet and, you know, mud up to your waist. Okay. And the next day you've got an emotional hangover and your inflammatory markers are like off the chart and they're still elevated. So let's talk cellular comedy show and what your mitochondria are actually thinking. And I know it's a serious thing like that is really happening, but I would like to keep it light and, you know, just give some strategies and things and help us because things are already heavy enough during the holiday season. So if mitochondria could talk, this is what I think their Yelp and their Google reviews would be. Cold plunge mitochondria, 10 out of 10. Would freeze again. Sure, the first minute was rough, but then we get to show off. We made it. Heat. We multiplied. We got stronger. It's like CrossFit, but for your I'm going to mess these up. Organelles. Plus the recovery snacks. You can't beat them. Increased metabolisms were the bomb. So then you get a review for the family dinner mitochondria. 0 out of 10. Considering early retirement. 3 hours of sustained panic with no recovery. Constantly pumping out energy for fight or flight that never happens. It's like being forced to sprint a marathon while someone yells at you about your life choices. Where's HR? I know, it's funny, but it just kind of puts things into perspective a little bit if mitochondria, if they, you know, hooked up little microphones and had their voices. So the neuroscience of why one sucks more. So Dr. Wendy Suzuki did research on stress, and the brain shows us why these two stressors do hit differently. So cold water activates the dive response. And this is an ancient mammalian program that actually protects, right? It protects your brain and your body. Your vagus nerve goes, oh my God, oh shit, wait, okay, what, we're diving? All right, and immediately slows your heart rate. It redirects your blood to vital organs, and then it triggers this really beautifully orchestrated and coordinated response that's been keeping mammals alive for millions of years. And it's acute, it's organized, and most importantly, it has a clear ending. Your brain knows that this stress will in fact stop. So now we have drunk relatives, drunk friends, drunk coworkers, whatever it is on the other hand, and they activate what Dr. Stephen Porges calls neuroception of threat. Your nervous system is detecting danger that it can't escape from. So you're trapped at a table, socially obligated to stay while your amygdala screams danger, literally in bright neon letters. But your prefrontal cortex is saying, you can't throat punch Aunt Karen, but you know, you really want to inside. And this creates what researchers call biological embedding of stress. Your cells literally change their impressions, their expressions, all the things based on the repeated, inescapable social stress. And it's why, you know, in that certain situation, that one comment from somebody still hits different 20 years later because you are literally biologically embedding stress and it's changing the expression patterns, right? So the recovery window, and this is a make or break it, right? Here's where the magic happens, or it doesn't. So Dr. Alyssa Appel's telomere research shows that stress isn't the killer. It's stress without recovery. And I think this is important to note because we do hear so much about how stress is the killer, and it can be if we're not recovering, if we're not down regulating or whatever it is, right? So stress without recovery is actually aging us at the cellular level. So cold plunging has built in recovery. You get out, you warm up, your mitochondria, they're maybe perhaps doing the little Kristas inside the energy cells are doing a little dance, and everyone moves on with their day. The stress is contained, it's processed, and then it's converted into strength. But a drunk relative stress, that shit follows you home. Like it's like sewn onto your body. And Dr. Susan Segerstrom's psychoneuroimmunology research has found that rumination, which is the replaying stressful social interactions over and over again on the feedback loop, we're hearing things that were said, we're creating mental movies in our minds. It keeps inflammatory markers elevated for up to 72 hours. You could be lying in bed at 2 a.m., still having imaginary arguments with Uncle Jim about who knows what, right? And your mitochondria are like, when does this end? And they never get to switch from crisis mode to growth mode. This is like keeping your muscles under tension for 3 days straight, except instead of getting swole, your cells are getting old. Now, alcohol is the variable. And when mitochondria, they get drunk by proxy. So let's add insult to cellular injury. I'm not, I don't drink anymore. I haven't drank in a long time. I don't regret it. I get tired of, the whole thing like, oh, the fun bus, you're not the fun bus anymore. Like, well, dude, I don't need freaking drink to be the fun bus. Like that's not my stitch, like, so if you can't deal with that, that's a you problem. But anyway, I digress. So let's talk about this. So when your relatives, whoever, friends, coworkers, what are drunk, you're not just dealing with social stress, you're dealing with alcohol altered behavior patterns that Dr. George Koob's his addiction research shows that it creates unpredictable threat patterns. So your nervous system cannot establish a baseline because what happens is you have Aunt Fiona oscillates between weepy affection and then like these ridiculously uncontrollable rants about some topic with no warning. It's like going from one opposite end of the spectrum to the other, right? And it's like trying to do a WOD where the movements change every 30 seconds and you're like, wait, what? So if you're drinking to cope, your mitochondria are now fighting a two-front war. Alcohol metabolism produces acetaldehyde, which is literally toxic to mitochondria. And Dr. Szabo's research shows alcohol directly impairs mitochondrial DNA mechanism, that repair mechanism. So while your cells are already stressed from family dynamics, from something that could be happening at work, from something that could be happening with friends at the holiday, or I've got to get this gift, I've got to plan this, I've got to host this, there's all of these things, right? You are pouring poison on the fire. You're pouring gasoline on the fire. It's like doing burpees in a burning building. Technically, it's possible, but you're not getting stronger. You're not. So how can we find that hormetic sweet spot, right? And I've talked about the hormesis in the past podcast. I did a podcast on it. This is why ice wins every time. So Dr. Matson's research on hormetic stress shows the sweet spot, that stress that's intense enough to trigger adaptation, but brief enough to allow recovery. Again, cold water nails this perfectly. It's brutal, but it's brief, shocking, but safe, uncomfortable, but controllable. And your mitochondria get that signal to level up without getting the message that the world is ending and there's direct danger and it's imperative. Okay. So family gatherings in general violate every principle of hormetic stress, and they're not intense enough to trigger immediate flight, fight, freeze, or fawn reactions. Like you can't, I mean, some people do, but technically, like you can't actually fight or flight. But they're too intense for relaxation, right? So they last too long for acute adaptation, but happen too frequently for chronic adaptation. And they're basically the worst of all the worlds. It's like a workout that's too easy to build strength, but you're never, ever getting the opportunity to recover from it. So social connection, and this is when it's not toxic. This is like an unexpected plot twist, right? Now, here's where it gets interesting. Dr. Julian Holt Lundstad's research on social connection shows that positive family interactions are actually incredible for your mitochondrial health. Genuine connection, laughter, belonging trigger oxytocin that release directly to improve mitochondrial function. And the tragedy is that mandatory holiday gatherings often create the opposite. It's obligatory interaction without true, genuine connection. That's the difference between having a cold plunge and being thrown on a frozen lake by somebody that you hate. It's the same temperature, but vastly different mitochondrial response. Context matters every single freaking time. Choice matters. Having an exit strategy matters the most. So your mitochondrial battle plan, it could be, what's a health conscious savage badger peep do? Well, Dr. Kelly McGonigal's stress research gives us the game plan. You can't always choose your stressors, right? But you can choose your response. We have that choice every single time. So here's how to help make those gatherings less mitochondrially devastating. There's a lot of words in here for me today that are hard. So pre-game protocol, hit an actual cold plunge or a cold shower before events. Dr. Wim Hof's method shows that pre-stress primes your systems for resilience. You're basically telling your mitochondria, we've handled worse, so let's do this. We've got this before walking into emotional chaos. Then there's the intra-game strategy. So this could be where you use box breathing to create micro recovery windows. Remember the 4 counts in, the 4 hold, the 4 out, the 4 hold, right? It's like giving your mitochondria an energy drink break during the suffering. Also, maybe it's volunteering again, like I mentioned, tasks outside. I'll take Fluffy outside, taking out the trash, doing the dishes. Maybe it's like, I will go if the kids want to go out and play in the snow, I'll take them outside. December is basically a mini cold plunge with plausible deniability. Then we have the post-game recovery, and this is what happens within 24 hours. So it's do something that is going to actively promote mitochondrial recovery. It could be cold exposure, sauna. I'm a huge fan of sauna. I'm a huge proponent and fan of exercise resistance training, meditation, anything that switches your cells from survive to thrive mode. And don't let the stress marinate. That is so important. Process it like the toxic exposure that it is. So what is that $1 million mitochondrial question? Well, I'm glad you asked. If someone put a gun to your head, this is peak stress, and they said, choose your torture for your mitochondrial health, the answer is crystal clear. You take the ice bath. 3 minutes of controlled discomfort that makes you stronger beats 3 hours of uncontrollable discomfort that makes you older every single time. And the more you're putting yourselves in those 3 hours of uncontrollable discomfort, you think how old your cells are getting. That is a real thing that is happening, right? But here's the real wisdom. You don't have to choose between them. You can use cold exposure to build resilience for family exposure, friends exposure, coworker exposure, whatever it is, going out shopping in the madness exposure. And you can recognize that, one is medicine and one is toxic. And you can protect your mitochondria like the cellular treasures that they really are. Because at the end of the day, your cells don't care about obligation. They don't care about tradition. They don't care what Aunt Fanny and Uncle Beauregard think. They care about survival and adaptation. And they are literally begging you to choose the stress that makes you stronger, not the stress that makes you need therapy sessions afterwards, right? So my final verdict from your cellular CEO, that is me. Your mitochondria have spoken, and their verdict is unanimous. Cold plunges are like sending your cells to Harvard. Training outside in the cold is like sending your cells to Oxford. I like Oxford better. Being outside in the cold, doing the things, challenging, right? But ultimately elevating. And drunk people, drunk relatives, drunk friends, drunk coworkers, whoever they are, like sending them to a timeshare presentation in hell. Prolonged torture with no upside. So during this holiday season, maybe it's start a new tradition. Every time someone suggests a gathering, counter with, how about we all do a cold plunge instead? Let me know how that goes. Will they think you're crazy? Absolutely. Will your mitochondria throw a parade with all the bands and all the fun and throwing the candy off the floats and things like that in your honor? Also an absolutely. So choose your stress wisely, okay? Your powerhouse is, all of the powerhouses, they're counting on you. So Badgers, let's let this plane land in the ice bath where it belongs. And, we've scientifically proven what your gut already knew. Voluntary cold exposure makes you stronger. Involuntary gathering exposure makes you older. So one builds resistance and one requires resilience. One is hormetic stress. One is just plain stress. So your homework, I'm kind of digging this homework vibe. Before your next gathering, get in some cold. It could be the shower. It could be the plunge. It could just literally stand outside in like your skivvies, a bikini or your underwear, right? And like you are a warrior preparing for battle, because sometimes that's what it feels like. Prime those mitochondria and remind your cells what good stress feels like so they can recognize the bad stuff when it shows up. And remember, you can't control who says what, if they show up drunk, if they continue to drink, but you can control whether you let it destroy your cellular health. So sometimes, really, the most badass thing that we can do is protect our mitochondria, like, again, the powerhouses that they are. So until next week, Merry Christmas. Stay cold, stay powerful, and when in doubt, choose the stress that comes with an exit strategy, even if it's an Irish exit.